Welcome back to the Sports Lab podcast with me and my co-host Thomas Bailey. As we got a different sport to get into that we haven't talked about a lot recently, and that's because they were in the off season, but opening day was just yesterday for Major League Baseball. One of my favorite sports. It gets me through the summer. It's really the only sport we got going on. But in today's episode, we're going to go over all of our predictions. We're going to do standing predictions 1 through 5. We're going to do our playoff predictions, our award predictions, World Series predictions all today. That's what this episode's going to be by. We're going to go division by division and predict how we think teams are going to place. We're not going to do records because for a 162 game season, I'm not spending hours doing that because I have a life. I am employed.
The Dodgers
And
going
I
to
just
finish with
don't.
107
I don't
wins.
feel like going through game by game and picking people. It would just take way too long. I don't want to do that. So we're gonna just do based on standings and how we think teams are gonna place. We're gonna start off with the AL East. Then we'll go through the rest of the AL. Then we'll go NL East through the rest of the NL. Self-explanatory. But I'll toss it over to you. How do you have the AL East shaking out?
See, I have the Yankees at 1. That's non-debatable. But 2 and 3, 4 and 5 are 4 and 5. The Blue Jays and the Rays really could go either way for who gets last. I have the Rays in last. I think that Guerrero is going to lift up the Blue Jays just enough to get them over the Rays in this situation. However, for the other Rays, I do have the Boston Red Sox taking the 2 seed in the division and the Baltimore Orioles in the 3. I think Boston made a lot of great offseason moves, and I think they're going to have a great year. I love the addition of Garrett Crochet. I really think that this team's going to play good, and I expect them to play well. One thing that really fucked them last year was not having enough good, consistent pitching. I think this year that is a big mark that they checked off in the offseason, and I think it's going to help benefit them for the season. It's a long season. You got to have different pitchers to pitch, and they have enough of a rotation that I think they're going to make a nice run. So go ahead and give me the Yankees and the Red Sox as the 1-2, the Orioles at 3, Blue Jays at 4, and the Tampa Bay Rays finish last at 5.
Mine is pretty similar. I have the same top 3, but I do have the Rays finishing above the Blue Jays. I don't want to count out the Rays because the Rays are one of those teams that even if you look on paper, they don't seem to have a lot of talent. They're able to nickel and dime their way to a lot of wins. They're getting Shane McClanahan back this year, who missed last year with the Tommy John surgery. So that's an ace pitcher they're getting back. They had one of the better young prospects, Junior Caminero, come up last year. I think he takes another step. They have a couple other good prospects that could come up and be instant impact. You know how they're going to play baseball, and they're just going to be able to get enough wins where I think they overtake the Blue Jays, who I don't trust their pitching staff. I don't trust their bullpen at all. And then the bottom of the order just isn't great. They have a couple of like top hitters, and I think their defense is going to be improved. Obviously, getting Andres Jimenez is going to improve that greatly. But I just don't trust this team enough. They look better on paper, but I think it's close enough where I just trust the Rays' way of just using analytics and nickeling, diming them way to get a lot of wins that you wouldn't think they'd get otherwise. So I have Rays 4, Blue Jays 5. I think the Blue Jays are not going to start off the season strong, and by midseason, they're going to trade away Vlad Guerrero so he doesn't just walk for nothing. And I think then they're going to go on a skid to really end the year where the Rays pass them. Then, I have the Yankees at 1. I actually have the Red Sox. I think there's a chance I think the Red Sox could actually win this division with all of the pitching staff injuries the Yankees are dealing with. Garrett Cole's out for the year. Luis Gill's out through till sometime in June, maybe even July. He might not be back to the All-Star break. And who knows what how he is coming from a lat strain without much of a spring training. We saw how that affected Carlos Rodon 2 years ago. Not saying it's exactly going to be like that, but it's not. He might not come back great. Clark Schmidt's injured right now. So their pitching staff is going through a lot right now. I expect the offense to be better than a lot of people think. Obviously, Aaron Judge brings so much attention. I think Cody Bellinger is a great fit. The way he hits the ball fits right. Now he's hitting right behind Judge, so Judge is going to put a lot of pressure on pitchers. He's going to be able to clean up a lot of that with Judge being on base. I love Austin Wells and Anthony Volpe. I think they take jumps. I think that Paul Goldschmidt and Ben Rice are going to be able to platoon a good first baseman spot. The defense is going to be a lot better this year. I think that they have enough. And where it's like, if you look at pitching and offense, I think the Red Sox and Yankees are close. But then you go to bullpen, and the Yankees have probably a top 3 bullpen in the entire league, and the Red Sox bullpen is not very good. I don't trust the pitching back end for the Red Sox. Their starting rotation, the top couple are nice. I don't trust the back end of that. I don't trust their bullpen because of that. I think the Yankees get the edge. Then the Orioles, they lost Corbin Burns. Grayson Rodriguez is injured, which hurts their pitching staff, but I think enough of their young guys are going to take a step. They're getting back elite closer Felix Bautista this year, and I think because of that, they're going to be a similar team to what they were last year, about a 90-win team, which slots them into third in the AL East. I think that the AL East has the 3 best teams in the AL. I think the Yankees, the Red Sox, the Orioles are better than everyone else in the AL. Unfortunately, they all play in the same division, which for me as a Yankees fan, as you can see, as you can see as a Yankees fan, it's not very fun having the best teams in, but it's whatever. I still think the Yankees are going to win. Shut up, you're a Mets fan.
I play in a worse division than yours. I play in the Phillies and the Braves division.
Yeah, but you have
to deal with the Dodgers every year.
Yeah, but at least you have 2 easy beat-up teams. Like the Marlins and Nationals are kind of a lot of free wins.
You have the Blue Jays.
The Blue Jays and the Rays are way better than the Marlins and Nationals.
True.
I mean, come on. Like basically, if you're not playing in Sandy Alcantara, the Marlins are a free win, and then the Nationals might be better, but they're still going to suck. So if you get to play against Patrick Corbin, that's a free win.
Yeah, right. That's fair.
So
Corbin's not good.
Yeah, the top end may be a little bit better, but that bottom end, you get more free wins that way. But as we move into what my opinion is the most wide open division in baseball, the AL Central, how do you think it shakes out here?
Ooh, my AL Central's a little interesting, but I do have the Detroit Tigers taking the division. I think that is a huge upgrade from a lot of what people have, but hear me out. They got some good bats. I really think that this team can really put it together. And I understand Skubal had a bad performance, but it's the LA Dodgers. Almost everybody has a bad performance. It's the first game of the season. Tarik Skubal literally won the Cy Young last year. Shut up. I don't care. One bad game against the best team in baseball. Sue me. Anyway, to get back to my point, I think the Tigers have the bats to get it done this year. They're basically the opposite of some other teams in this conference where they just didn't have the bats to compete last year, but they did have the pitching, especially the top-end pitching. I think the rotation's good enough to survive through this division. I think it's a gauntlet. I think it's going to be interesting, but I do think they take the division. Next up, Cleveland at number 2. I think the Guardians are a very good team. I think they're very solid. I think it's 1 or 2 wins that separate these teams by the end of it. I don't really think that the Tigers are going to run away with the division. I don't think that they're going to win this division by 5, 6, 7 games. I think they might win this division by literally 1 or 2 games by the end of it. So I do think that the Tigers have enough to get through it. So give me the Tigers 1. Cleveland at 2. Number 3, I have the Kansas City Royals. I love this Royals team. I think they're a very good team. Obviously, Bobby Witt Jr., phenomenal player there. I really like what they did in the offseason. The pitching can be inconsistent, but I think that they still have a good enough team to make a run here, and I think that they're going to get the job done. Number 4, number 5, the 2 kind of bad teams of the division. I still think that the Twins are a very good team, but unfortunately in this gauntlet, I think they're going to have a lot of games where they're going to lose. Similar to what I think about a lot of SEC teams, where like Alabama's a good team against most other conferences, but playing in your conference, losing all those games in conference is going to hurt you, and losing all these games in division to the other 3 teams that I think are better is going to inevitably kill them in this. So I do think that the Twins finish 4th. And then lastly, of course, the Chicago White Sox. There's no debating that, but the White Sox finish it out in last, which woohoo, let's go Sox, baby.
Hey, I picked up the one White Sox pitcher like 2 days ago when he started for them opening day, and he was cooking. So, hey, as long as he's on my dynasty baseball team, so let him continue to cook and win me some money.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. He made like 24 fantasy points. It was something really nice.
24.
But anyway, I don't remember the exact number, or something around there. He cooked against the Angels because the Angels are also equally as bad. But for me, I have the AL Central shaking out decently bit different. I actually have 3 of the 5 teams in the same spots. I just have the Tigers and the Royals flip-flop. I think the Royals win this division. I think Bobby Witt is the clear best player. Well, I wouldn't say clear best player in the division. I mean, I think he is, but there's J-Ram. But I think Bobby Witt is the best player in the division. I trust they have a 3-headed monster at pitching. who all pitched really well last year. They made some upgrades. Getting Jonathan India, I think, is really going to help balance out that roster. It's Salvador Perez, Vinny Pasquantino. I think they have some decent bats, which last year their offense was kind of outside of Bobby Witt wasn't great. So I think it's going to be better, and their pitching's still going to be good, and their bullpen is going to be better because it was not very good last year. And I think you pair all of that together. Maybe Jack Caglione, the way he was hitting, can make his way into the lineup at some point this year. Probably not, but maybe he can make an instant impact. But I think they win the division. I think this is going to be really close. Then I have the Guardians at 2. Yes, they traded away Andres Jimenez. Yes, they traded away Josh Naylor. But they do that every year. They, outside of Jose Ramirez, they trade away every single one of their good players, and then they somehow still find a way to be good. Because the Guardians are basically like the Rays, except for the Guardians are just in a much worse division, so they get easier wins than the Rays. They're both small market teams that nickel and dime their way to wins, and I think that having Jose Ramirez and that strategy is going to help you win some games. So give me the Guardians at 3. And the Tigers, I think, will be a little bit disappointing this year because last year, I think they kind of went on a fluky run a little bit in September. Yes, they went on this hot streak, but they did a lot of like bullpen games and like their starter was pulled really early. They taxed their bullpen a lot to get a lot of those wins down the stretch. And I mean, hey, it worked. You made it to the second round of the playoffs. So, I mean, kudos to you for doing that. And yes, the offense should be better. Signing Gleyber Torres, their young guys should continue to get better. Hopefully Jackson Jobe can make an impact on that pitching staff outside of Skubal. This kind of reminds me of the Tigers team a couple of years ago where they made a late push at the end of the year. And then they went out and spent some money thinking, oh, maybe this is the year they get over the hump. And then they weren't able to do it. And they were kind of disappointing. I don't think they'll have like a Javi Baez level bad contract. I think Gleyber Torres will be a decent fit there. But I don't like them outside of Tariq Skubal. There's no one else really on that team I fully trust. So I think starting pitcher can only carry you so far. So yeah, I have the Tigers at 3. I have the Twins at 4. For me, it's a toss-up between the Tigers and the Twins. I think the Twins will be a little bit better this year. I think they battled a lot of injuries and stuff like that last year, which they still might this year. They have a lot of injury-prone older players, Byron Buxton, Carlos Correa, Royce Lewis. So they do have a lot of injury-prone players, so that may bite them again. But they still have a lot of talent on that team that could get them some wins. And then, yeah, White Sox at 5. I think they'll be better than last year, but that's just because last year they were literally the worst team of all time, statistically the worst record ever.
Yeah.
I don't think they're going to get worse than that. I do think the pitching staff's a little underrated. I mean, I just told you about that guy I just picked up, so maybe he continues to cook. But they have a really good farm system, so maybe some of those young guys can make an instant impact, and they could get their way to like 60 wins, 65 wins, which is still going to be awful, but who knows? Maybe there'll be a little bit of a surprise in that way this year, but they're still going to be terrible. Don't let a win over the equally awful Angels fool you. The White Sox are going to be bad this year.
Yeah.
As this leads me into the final division in the AL, another division that I think is kind of a toss-up. One team has been dominating it for years, but they're kind of
bad.
They're coming back to earth. They're kind of in the back end of the run with the Astros. But how do you think the AL West is going to shake out?
See, this is the same case as the other two divisions. All 3 divisions, I could see the top 3, and in the AL Central's case, 4 teams potentially winning this division. And so for this one, it's kind of a toss-up between Seattle and Texas. I think Houston lost way too much in the offseason to compete with them, at least. I think they get 3. I think Houston at 3, and then number 4, Los Angeles Angels, 5, Oakland Athletics. That's 3, 4, 5. That's 3, 4, 5, no matter what to me. But 1 and 2 is iffy. I have Seattle winning the division, though. I do think that they'll get just enough done. Jorge Polanco, Luis Castillo, I think they do a lot there. A little bit more top-heavy than other teams, but I think that they do enough to make some plays here. I think Polanco is one of the better guys in the division overall out of everybody. And I do think the Texas Rangers do have what it takes to compete. But I do not think that this Seattle Mariners team is going to lose the division for one reason, and that's the injury bug. When it sticks with a team as much as it's stuck with Texas, it's inevitable that somebody goes down, and I think that's going to be the deciding factor is somebody going down. I think it'll be a 2 or 3 game lead at the end of the season. So give me Seattle to win the division, Texas number 2, Houston 3, Los Angeles Angels number 4, and then number 5, the Athletics.
Oh, okay. So yeah, mine's a little bit different. I think the clear worst team in this division is the Angels. I think there's a legitimate chance that they might be worse than the White Sox this year. I think the Angels are legitimately that bad. They are terrible. They don't, outside of Trout when he gets injured 30 games in, they have nothing to look forward to really on that team. At least the Athletics have some young hitters that have been kind of like Lawrence Butler, Brett Rooker.
Lawrence Butler.
They spent a little bit more in free agency. They're a young team that's kind of on the up and up a little bit more. So I think that they're going to be better than the Angels. I think the Athletics could be a sneaky 75, 80 win team. Much improvement from the last couple of years where they were bottom feeders. They're not going to be good by any means, but I think that their young players are going to continue to get a little bit better. They spend a little bit more than normal. So because of that, I think that they beat out the Angels. Then I have the Astros at 3. It is hard to count them out because they do still have some stars, Framber Valdez, Yordan Alvarez, Jeremy Pena, but they lost someone like Kyle Tucker, which was huge. I think that's really going to kill their offense a lot. And they didn't really add much. I don't trust their pitching outside of Valdez that much. I mean, but the Astros have the track record of even when teams count them out, they can still find ways to win. So I don't want to fully count them out. I'm not saying, they have no chance making the playoffs. I just don't love their chances this year. I think this is kind of the end of their run. I think major shakeup probably happens to the team after this year. After I think they missed the playoffs for the first time in a decade. And then at 2, I have the Seattle Mariners. I think they have probably the second best pitching staff in the league behind the Dodgers. I mean, the Dodgers is just a bunch of all-stars. I mean, the Dodgers have like the best everything. So I'm not really. Their pitching staff, though, very, very good. And I think their hitting is going to be a lot better this year than last year. Julio Rodriguez had a down year. I think he improves. Randy Arozarena had a down year. I think he improves. Cal Riley's really good. I think they have enough pieces where they can score, at least become a below average to average offense instead of bottom 3 offense in the league with having absolutely elite pitching. And I think that can carry them to the 2 seed in this division, or to take second in this division. And then I have the Rangers winning it. They just won the World Series 2 years ago. Injury bug killed them last year, but they still have a lot of really good players. I think Corey Seager, when he's healthy, is one of the best players in the league. Marcus Semien, you know what he can do. Adolis Garcia, Wyatt Langford. They have some really good hitters on that lineup. And then in the pitching staff, Jacob deGrom, when he's healthy, what he can do, even at this age, he doesn't stay healthy often, but he could definitely make some impact. Nathan Eovaldi's a good pitcher. I think they have enough pieces where they can win this division. Yes, they're kind of very risky due to injuries, but at the end of the day, I just trust them. I think like the Rangers offense is equal to the Mariners pitching per se. I just trust the Rangers pitching more than I trust Seattle's offense. Kind of is where I'm giving the Rangers the edge to win the division. So my 3 division winners would be Yankees, Royals, Rangers. Yours are Yankees, Tigers, and Mariners. As we move over to the NL, where the division your Mets play in, the NL East, how do you think this shakes out?
Yeah, the NL East is a bloodbath, to say the least, and like the other 3 divisions before it, but not for the same reason. This is going to be a 3-team race, and I think that the Mets are right in the thick of it at the end, but give me the Phillies. I think the Phillies are going to win this division. I think they've just got everything. They got the entire rotation. I think the Mets, maybe if they're on a good day, can beat them in bats, but when it comes to pitching, you're not going to stand a chance with what our pitching staff looks like, especially in a 162-game season. We have AJ Minter on our fucking opening day roster. We have some issues in pitching.
Clay Holmes is a starter.
Yeah, I know. Very clearly, we have pitching issues. And for that reason, I do think that the Mets aren't going to win this division. I think just like last year, I think we start out a little sluggish. I think we'll pick it up probably halfway through the season, late April, early March, early May. I think that we can still get some stuff going on later on in the season, but I do think that this is going to be enough to give the Phillies the division. And then as for the Atlanta Braves, the reason I don't have the Braves over the Mets is I think the Mets are just going to have that X factor, and that X factor is Juan Soto. When you have a player like Juan Soto.
Ronald Acuna Jr.?
No, like, No, I think Ronald Acuna is good, and I'm not saying that. I'm saying he's the X factor for the Mets to propel them to the number 2.
Oh, I
I
thought
think
you were
Ronald
saying like
Acuna
they
is
have an
still.
X Factor superstar and the Braves
No,
don't.
they
And
no, I know
I
they
was
do.
confused. I'm like
No, they
Ronald Acuna,
do. Yes, I'm saying
but
the
no, I
X
get what
factor
you're
for the
saying. Yeah,
Mets to win is going to be Juan Soto. I think Juan Soto is one of the best players in the game, and he is definitely going to be the NL MVP race, probably there with Shohei Ohtani. We'll get to all that stuff later. But for the sake of this, I do think that the Mets finish number 2. I think, unfortunately for the New York Mets, though, number 3, the Atlanta Braves, they're still a very good team. The Braves are going to beat up on the rest of the teams in this division. I think they're going to do great. And with that, I think that it's unfortunate for them, the situation. So the Braves finished third, and then obviously in fifth, changeable to most people. I think the Nationals are a little bit better than the Miami Marlins. Go ahead and give the Washington Nationals.
looks like Thomas is dealing with some technical difficulties. So while he tries to figure that out, I will go over how I think the NL East will fare. I have the Braves winning the division. I think that the Braves were right there. They made the playoffs last year, and that was without Ronald Acuna, their best hitter, without Spencer Strider, their best pitcher, and just sorry for that. Internet sucks sometimes. Don't we just love technology and Wi-Fi? But before we were dealing with that, I was going to get into how I think the NL East is going to shake up. And I actually have the Atlanta Braves winning the division. My thought process was the Braves were very good last year. They made the playoffs. They were without Spencer Strider. They were without Ronald Acuna Jr., both for most of the year. Their best pitcher and their best hitter, best overall player, top 5 to 7 player in the league, probably maybe top 3 to 5, like you could argue there. Um, and they get both of them back probably within a month and a half. Like Strider's they're estimating he'll be back by the end of April and Acuna sometime in like mid May. So you're going to have them for most of the season. Maybe they won't be as good coming right off the injury, but I think by the end of the season they'll be clicking, they'll be rolling, and your offense outside of like Marcelo Zuna last year, just a lot of your top players just had down years. Austin Riley, Ozzy Albies, Michael Harris. Like I don't think these guys are going to continue to play like that. I don't think last year was telling of how they really are. I think you, especially when you bring someone like Acuna back in the lineup, I think their offense is going to be a lot better. And I think their pitching, which was elite last year, even if Chris Sale takes a step back, I think will can be just as good inserting Spencer Strider. They added Jurickson Profar from the Padres, who was very, very good last year, to really round out that outfield. So I really like the direction the Braves are in, and I think they're going to be right back to being, in my opinion, they're probably the second best team in the league behind the Dodgers. And then at 2, I had the Phillies. I mean, they have that 3-headed pitching monster of Wheeler, Nola, Ranger Suarez. They obviously have some very good hitters in Bryce Harper, JT Realmuto, Alec Boehm, Nick Castellanos when bad things happen. So they have some really good hitters there, and I think they just have enough where they have a good offense and they have elite pitching, and I think that's the difference between them. Like the reason I have the Mets 3, the Mets might have the best offense out of the 3. The problem is the Mets have by far and away the worst pitching out of the 3. So that's why I picked the Braves and Phillies to finish over them. But I still have the Mets as a very good team. Obviously, having Lindor, Soto, and Alonso, 3 straight hitters, is pretty scary for opposing pitchers. They can do a lot of damage, but with how bad that pitching is, I think it really caps their ceiling this year. So I have them third in the division. Then I have the Nationals. I think the Nationals could be a sneaky, decent team. I have no chance they're making the playoffs. But you add James Wood and Dylan Cruz at the end of last year, and they made a lot of noise. They were playing really well. I think that those 2 guys can kind of help that offense out. I think the Nationals are still going to be a bad team. I just think they've kind of been improving the last couple of years. And I think they continue on that improvement. CJ Abrams is still very young and improving. The pitching staff really can't get much worse. So that'll probably get better just by you can't get worse. And then I have the Marlins at 5 outside of Sandy Alcantara, who they're probably going to end up trading at some point. They have basically nobody because they're the Marlins and they're cheap and they suck. And yeah, it's the Miami Marlins. I mean, what do you expect? So that's how I have it. I have Braves, Phillies, Mets, National, Marlins. As we move into the NL Central, Thomas, how do you think the NL Central shakes out?
I have a little bit of a sleeper. I have the Chicago Cubs winning the division. I think the team, I think they're going to have a lot that goes right. And with them, I think that the Cubs can definitely a couple of their players. Losing Devin Williams to the Yankees definitely doesn't help. But having a couple of these guys like Willy Adames who also leave are going to hurt the bats. And with those both happening, I think that the Cubs take this division. I think number 3 goes to Cincinnati. He's just going to barely beat out Pittsburgh for number 4, who, spoiler alert, I have Pittsburgh number 4. And lastly, number 5, I have the St. Louis Cardinals. I think all 3 of those teams, you could really see them either way. But I do think that the Reds have the best promise for this season and have enough that's going with them to get them to this. So go ahead and give me them. And then I think number 4 is Pittsburgh. And then lastly, number 5 is St. Louis. So I think it's a solid division, but it's really a 2-team race, in my opinion, between the Cubs and the Brewers. But I think the Cubs did enough in the offseason. Brewers lost a couple familiar faces, lost a bat, lost a pitcher.
Yeah, I have my NL Central being basically the exact same. I have the bottom 3 being the same. The difference is I have the top 2 flipped. Or no, I actually no, I don't. I have actually, now that I think about it, I have the NL Central the exact same way. I have the Cubs winning the division. They just added, in my opinion, a top 10 player in the league in Kyle Tucker when he is healthy. He is absolutely elite. Shota Imanaga is a great pitcher. They have Nico Horner as another good hitter. I think that they have pieces. They're a younger Dansby Swanson. They're a younger team that's kind of ascending, and you add someone like Kyle Tucker to replace Cody Bellinger. Ian Happ's still there. I think they're going to have a really good offense, and their pitching staff, which was decent last year, I think continues to stay decent. While the Brewers, they lost their best closer and their best hitter. I get Jackson Churio's probably going to take that step, which can kind of mitigate some of that. But Christian Yelich was also one of the best hitters, and he can't stay healthy, and he's getting up there in age. I just don't really trust this lineup that much. And the pitching staff, I mean, Freddie Peralta is pretty good, and Brandon Woodruff, when he's healthy, is good. And Nestor Cortez is he's a good starter, but outside of that, I don't trust him that much. In the bullpen, I don't trust a lot, even though they just seem to find pitchers. They're really good at developing a bullpen. So I think they're still going to be a good team, but I think the Cubs just have the star power to overtake them. And then at 3, I do have the Reds. I think the Reds are a sneaky decent team because they're kind of one of those young teams that's ascending. And then their pitching staff is very, very good. I mean, Nick Lodolo, Hunter Green, blanking on their third guy. I know they have another really, really good guy. I'm just blanking on his name. They have probably the best player in this division. It's between Elly De La Cruz and Kyle Tucker for at least best fielder hitter. Obviously, Paul Skeens is the best pitcher in it, and it's kind of hard to debate pitchers versus hitters. But I think Elly De La Cruz is going to take that next ascension. He was a top 5 in MVP voting last year. I think he continues to get better. He's a sneaky pick to win MVP. I don't have him winning it, but I mean, he's a 40-40 potential threat with elite defense. So he's very good. And I think that they continue to get better and better. And they're a team that could maybe get to like 500. They get to 80, 82, 83 wins. But I don't think they're stiff in the playoffs in a very deep NL. And then I have the Pirates at 4, mostly just because their pitching staff is very good. Paul Skeens, obviously, in my opinion, the best pitcher in baseball. Jared Jones. They have some young guys coming through. O'Neal Cruz is probably going to take another step. He's been struggling, inconsistent, but he's still very young, and he just has all those tools to be so good. So I think that the Pirates continue to get better just because of that. I mean, when Paul Skeens is on the mound, it's almost a guaranteed win every single time. So I think because of that, having that throughout and not a super strong division, I think that they'll be able to get to like 75-ish wins maybe, which will get them 4th. And then I have the Cardinals being pretty bad this year. I think they're bottom 5 team in the league. They're very old. They lost guys. They didn't bring anyone in. I don't think they signed a single free agent this year. They spent $0 in free agency, if I remember. And I get Paul Goldschmidt was struggling last year, but you let him walk for nothing. He was kind of a veteran leader, captain on the team. Nolan Arenado is just getting worse and worse by the day. Their pitching staff is pathetic. Really, the only like all-star caliber guy they have is a relief pitcher, Ryan Presley. And again, relief pitching. If that's your best player, you're not going to be a very good team. So because of that, I have the Cardinals being dead last in this division, being pretty bad. As we move into the final division, the NL West, obviously the team who's going to win it, pretty obvious. They're minus 800 odds on FanDuel to win the division, which is just insane. I don't think I've ever seen odds to win a division ever be that good for anyone ever in like any sport. Like,
and the division's not bad either. They play with Padres and Diamondbacks, who are potential playoff contenders.
Honestly, I think they have an argument to being the best division in baseball. I think they are, because having them, the Padres and Diamondbacks are really good. And then the Giants are an underrated team, but they're just so loaded that it really doesn't matter. But how do you think this division shakes out?
Well, first of all, I want to talk about Cincinnati. Brady Singer is the guy you were forgetting about.
Oh, that they got in the Jonathan India trade.
It's okay.
Yep.
Yeah, so other than that, though, the LA Dodgers are number 1. They're going to win the division. We can skip right over them. They have the best team in baseball, bar none. Number 2 and number 3, though. This is where interesting. I think the Diamondbacks take number 2. I think number 3 is the Padres. And let me explain here. I think the Padres are a damn good baseball team. However, I do think that the San Diego Padres do not have as much bats as they did last year. Losing Jurickson Profar is definitely going to hurt them a little bit in the running. I think they're also one of those teams that are annually a team that starts out slow. They're a team that just doesn't really start out strong. And then the Diamondbacks are one of those teams that can really lose their season by ending off on a poor note. However, the Diamondbacks, I don't think, do that this year. They definitely did it last year. Thank you. You let my Mets make it all the way to the NLCS. Got raped by the Dodgers, but, we made it. So, yay. Either way, thank you, Arizona. I think Arizona does get this, though. I think they're going to win the second place, the consolation prize of the division, with how good of a division this is. And then number 4, the Giants, which is sad. They're almost like the Twins here in this situation where, like, they're better than the number 4 seed in their division, but they play in an insane division. So it's unfortunate for them. And then lastly, the Colorado Rockies. So I think that the Rockies are going to be a pretty bad team. I don't think they're necessarily terrible. I think they have a couple decent pieces, but Brendan Rodgers, obviously. But I do think that this team is going to be pretty bad. So I think it's got to go Rockies at 5, number 4, the Giants, number 3, the Padres, number 2, the Diamondbacks, and, of course, number 1, the fucking Dodgers.
Oh, I do think the Rockies are necessarily bad. I think the only teams in the league I think that will be worse than them are the Marlins, the Angels
and White Sox,
and the White Sox. I think they're the 4th. They're pretty bad. I think this division is the best in baseball. I genuinely think that if the San Francisco Giants played in the AL or NL Central, that they would win those divisions. I think the same thing for the Diamondbacks. I think the same thing for the Padres. The problem is they all play, or not the Padres, the Diamondbacks, and Giants would all win the AL and NL Central. The problem is the Dodgers exist. But how I have this finishing, I have the Dodgers winning it. Shocker. Then I also have the Diamondbacks 2, Padres 3, Giants 4. I mean, the Dodgers are an all-star lineup. The Diamondbacks.
That's why you said, damn it.
The Diamondbacks have a very good lineup. I mean, you have Corbin Carroll, who started out the year really slow, but then was heating at the end of the year. Ketel Marte, both of those guys are MVP candidates. You have that is your 1-2 hitting combination, and then Corbin Burnes and Zach Allen is your 1-2 pitching combination. I mean, that is very, very, very good. I think that they're a young team. They just added a top 5 to 7 pitcher in baseball. Basically, they went from having Jordan Montgomery's disaster class last year to going to Corbin Burnes. So I think that's a huge upgrade, and that propels them to the number 2. And then, the Padres, they lost their best pitcher, they lost their best relief pitcher, and they lost one of their best hitters in Blake Snell, Jurickson Profar, and Tanner Scott. All 3 of those guys are gone, and I think that really puts a dent because they didn't really replace them with anything. Yeah, they have some young guys. Let's see how Michael King steps up to be. If he continues to show what he showed at the end of last year, he could be really, really good. They still have Yu Darvish, obviously hitting. They still have Fernando Tatis Jr., Jackson Merrill, Manny Machado. Like, they're not going to be a bad team per se, but I just don't think they have enough to compete with the Dodgers, and I think the Diamondbacks are just have more star power than them. And then the Giants.
This is literally like the Cubs and Brewers thing to me, where like the Cubs just added, the Brewers subtracted, Padres subtracted, and then the Diamondbacks added. Like, it's just it's that exact same thing.
And then the Giants, I think they are a really good team. They unfortunately are just stuck behind. I mean, you got Logan Webb, ace.
I'm not going to lie. I wouldn't be surprised if the Giants finish ahead of the Padres. I'll say that.
I wouldn't either. I wouldn't even be surprised if the Dodgers went on a run and made the playoffs. Or the Giants.
The Giants. The Dodgers making the playoffs? Whoa. No, Sleeper of the year right there, bro.
I would not be surprised if the Giants made the playoffs. I mean, Logan Webb is an ace. Justin Verlander and Robbie Ray are older wild cards, but if they can I'm not saying they're going to go, they're not their prime, but if they can at least show relevance of those and both be sub-4 ERA guys, that's a decent pitching staff. And then hitting, I mean, you're going to have a really good defense. Obviously, Matt Chapman, Willie Adames, Lamont Wade Jr., Heliot Ramos, Young-Ho Lee, very good defenders. And some of them can also hit, like Willie Adames and Matt Chapman. They have some decent hitters. They have good pitching. So I think they're kind of an average team, but they have the upside because they have some riskier players who have kind of struggled in the past that they're adding to the team. I mean, they were a 500 team last year, and they added Willie Adames. They added Justin Verlander. Robbie Ray maybe gets back to snuff after battling injuries the last couple of years. So I think that stuff could push them over the edge, but I'm not going to pick them to do that. Out of the 3 teams battling for second in the division, I trust them the least, so I do have them 4th. And then, the Rockies suck. They're 5. They remind me of the Marlins. They're just incompetence. Then they're just going to continue to be incompetent. But that is it for the standards. Yeah, and it's cool that they hit nukes because they play in Colorado. That is it for the standing predictions. As now I'm going to ask you, we're going to go over what we have for our playoff seeds. Then we're going to go over the awards, and then we're going to go over how we think the playoffs play out. In the AL, how do you have the seeds finishing out 1 through 6? And who do you have 7th, just missing the playoffs?
Ooh. So this is going to be easy for me because I debated between 2 teams for the final spot. But number 1, the New York Yankees. I think, yes, they lost a lot, but realistically, the Tigers and the Seattle Mariners are the other 2 division winners. I think if the Yankees win the division, they're going to get first in the overall conference. Number 2, I do have the Tigers taking a slight edge over the Mariners. I think that the Tigers are going to be a little bit better. And the only reason I think this is pretty close between the Mariners and the Tigers is I think the Mariners play in the worst division, the less competitive. So I feel like the Tigers might lose a lot of games just because they're in a tougher division. And so I think the Mariners could be very close to sneaking into that 2 spot, but go ahead and give me Detroit. Number 3, I have the Seattle Mariners. I don't know why I had an aneurysm saying that word, but either way, I think that the Seattle Mariners are a good team, and I think they're going to get the number 3 after winning the division. Congratulations. There's your participation award. Anyway, number 4, I do have the Cleveland Guardians, and then obviously number 5, the Kansas City Royals. Tough matchup there. Cleveland and Kansas City. 4 versus 5 matchup is what that will be for me. And then I have the number 6 seed as the Boston Red Sox. The number 7 would be the Baltimore Orioles. Hear me out. The Orioles, hear me out. And I know you're going to hate this, and I'm sorry, but I have to.
No, I'm not. I'm a Yankees fan. I disagree, but I love this. Screw the Red Sox. Screw the Orioles.
So hear me out here. But the Orioles, they lost Corbin Burns. Grayson Rodriguez is going to miss a lot of time with his injury. I think that's going to set them up for a bad start. And if you start bad in the MLB, you're not going to make it up, especially in a stacked AL conference. I could legitimately think that this Orioles team could finish on a 60-20 run by the end of the season. And it might not be enough at that point because of how stacked this division / conference in general is. And so for the Orioles, I think 3 things are going against them here. They lost Corbin Burns, who's an amazing pitcher. You're going to feel that in some way. The injury to Grayson Rodriguez, so the bullpen is the big first issue. The second issue, you play in a gritty AL division. Yes, the Blue Jays suck. Yes, the Rays are okay. But you have the Red Sox and the Yankees, who are, in my opinion, both playoff caliber teams. You're not going to win a lot of those games when you have to play them. That's going to be another detriment to them. And then number 3, of course, you're playing in a conference where you got Cleveland, Kansas City that I have to have in the playoffs because I think Kansas City takes a jump this year. They made way too many moves to not take a jump. And I think the Tigers are still good enough to make the playoffs. I feel like if there's anything that I might have messed up, it might be saying the Tigers win this division. I think it could go to Cleveland or Kansas City too. If Kansas City wins this division and the Tigers miss out and the Orioles are the last team, I could see that happening. However, right here, right now, I have to give Cleveland and Kansas City playoff spots, and that only leaves the Red Sox or the Orioles. And I'm not picking against the Red Sox when the Orioles lost one of the best pitchers in the league. And their starting pitcher, their best pitcher on the team, and Grayson Rodriguez, is going to miss the first half of the season. So due to those things, I think the Orioles just miss out. I think they're going to miss out by maybe 2-3 games. I'm thinking 86, 87 wins, and they're probably going to hate themselves that they're just out, but they are. Sorry, Orioles fans. I know you probably hate me right now, if they even exist. But, yeah.
I have mine so literally the only thing I have is the same as you is the Yankees being the 1 seed. I have 4 out of the 6 teams the same, but completely different seeds. I have the Yankees winning. Yes, I think they're probably going to be similar to last year, 94-ish, 95 win team. And while I think the AL is deep, I think like the AL is deeper than the NL, but the NL's top dogs are better than the AL for the most part. So I think 95 wins gets you the 1 seed, while in the AL, the 95 wins would get you the 3 seed, in my opinion, if you won a division. Then I have the Rangers being number 2. It's just kind of a toss-up between them and the Royals. I just think the Rangers just have more veterans, and I just trust them a little bit more than the young team in the Royals. So I think they'll have like 90 wins versus like the Royals having like 89-ish. I think the NL Central is going to have, or the AL Central is going to have 4 teams with 80-plus wins. I literally think the Twins, I had them taking 4th in division. I think they're going to miss the division by like 5 or 6 games. I think it's going to be super, super tight in my opinion. But I do have the Royals at like 88, 89. Then I have the Red Sox as the 4 seed. I think they're the second best team in the AL. They just unfortunately play in the Yankees division. I have the Orioles as the 5 seed. I think they're the 3rd best team, but I just think that their young guys coming back is going to kind of, their young guys stepping up is going to kind of like soften the blow of losing Corbin Burns and getting back their elite closer. Last year, their bullpen was terrible, and Felix Bautista the year before that, like a 1.5 ERA. He is very, very good. So I think their bullpen will be a lot better, and their offense will be better. I think Gunnar Henderson continues. I think Adley Rutschman had kind of a down year. I think he bounces back. Tyler O'Neill, I think, is a decent player. Obviously, like Colby Mayo, Jackson Holiday, I think they both improved from kind of struggling last year in their limited time they saw. So I really like the Orioles what they have. I just don't think they have the pitching to really be above the Yankees or the Red Sox in the division. And then at 6, I have the Mariners. I only think one again. I think the NL Central, or why do I keep saying NL? The AL Central is so deep that I think they all beat up on each other, which all kind of hurts their records. Like I think the Royals will have like 88, 89 wins. I think the Guardians are going to have like 86, 87 wins. The Tigers are going to have like 84, 85 wins. And the Twins at like 81, 82 wins. I think they're all going to beat up on each other, which is then going to get the Mariners in because they get to beat up on the Athletics and the Angels. And then I think their pitching staff is good enough where at 88, 89 wins, I think they can get in as that 6th seed. And then I have the Guardians being the 7th seed, just missing the playoffs. So that is what I have for the AL. And then for the NL, what are your seeds for the NL? Obviously, the 1 seed's pretty obvious.
Hot take here. I have the Dodgers as the 1 seed. I know you said they might not make the playoffs. You had them as the 6th seed.
I actually have the Rockies being the 1 seed. Somehow they're the 1 seed despite taking 5th of their division. It's just how that happened.
I think the Cardinals sneak in. I think the Cardinals are going to sneak in as the 17th seed.
There's only 15 There's only 15 teams in the end. They're going to be so bad they're going to be so bad that 2 minor league teams are going to be ranked out.
Yeah, right. The Syracuse Mets get in over the fucking St. Louis
Buffalo
Cardinals.
Bisons, let's go.
Yeah, baby, the Binghamton Rumble Ponies getting in. I love it.
Love to see it. The Baltimore's triple or double A team. You saw that new logo, the glove with the oyster in it. It looks like
stop the clam thing. It looks like a clip, bro. Nah, dude, that's bad.
Bro, the jokes I've been seeing for it have had me crying laughing.
That's terrible. So, obviously, the Dodgers are the 1. Number 2, I have Philly. I think that this Phillies team is very good, obviously. I mean, there's not much needing to explain because the only other team in contention is the Cubs. I think there's a peg where the Dodgers are the best. I think there's like 2 pegs down, you got the Phillies, 2 more pegs down, and you got the Cubs. I think that the Dodgers are in a tier of their own. I think the Phillies are still right there. I think they're still a good team. But for the regular season purposes, I think the Dodgers absolutely demolished this conference. I think they win 108 to 115 games, somewhere in there. I wouldn't be surprised if it's like 105 maybe, but still, I think this team's damn good, and I think they're going to prove it with a 1 seed. Number 2, I think the Phillies are a very good team. I think they're going to steal that number 2 seed from the Cubs, obviously, who I think made some good offseason additions, but that bullpen still gives me some question marks, especially for 162 games. Oh, pardon. You're probably going to lose a couple games due to that bullpen. So I do think that the relief pitching might need a little bit more, but right now, speaking as it is for the Cubs, I think the Cubs can do enough to get that 3 seed, obviously, to win the division. The number 4 seed, I have the New York Mets, and then the Atlanta Braves is the 4 and the 5. Similar situation to the AL Central with the Royals and the Guardians. I have them both at the 4 and the 5, and each as 2 and 3 in their divisions. I think they're very good, and I'm going to end up leaning with this New York Mets team to get the 4 seed, obviously. I think Atlanta still gets in. And then lastly, I have the Arizona Diamondbacks taking the final seed over the San Diego Padres, who I think are the next team out with the Milwaukee Brewers. I think they both tie in record. I would not be shocked if I'm wrong there, but still. And the only reason I think that Arizona gets in over a team like Milwaukee is Milwaukee, if we're talking last season for Milwaukee, and you take away the move, like if you tell me Milwaukee's the team they are today, so like today's roster, Milwaukee, and then last year's teams for Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, and St. Louis, I would put Milwaukee in the playoffs because I feel like they would be able to beat up on all 3 of them. However, I think the Reds and this Paul Skeens-led Pirates team are both going to steal games against the Brewers, whereas I don't think that happens as much for them with the Colorado Rockies, obviously. And, of course, I think that they're better than the San Diego Padres, who lost a lot. So I think that the explanation there is obvious. I think Arizona makes the final seed, leaving my seeding 1 Dodgers, 2 Phillies, 3 Cubs versus 6 Arizona Diamondbacks, and then 4 versus 5, the New York Mets and the Atlanta Braves as my NL bracket.
Yeah, I have mine similar. I have the same 6 teams making the playoffs. I just have the seedings a little bit different because we had different division
Yeah,
winners
you
for
had the
the
Braves in
NL.
number 2 and
Yeah,
Braves in
yeah.
1. I
So
know.
I've Dodgers 1, Braves 2, Cubs 3. I mean, basically the way you described it, there's like different tiers. I just think the Braves are a little bit better than the Phillies. Phillies 4, Mets 5, and then I do have the Diamondbacks 6. And then instead of the Brewers 7, I guess hypothetically would have like the Brewers 8. I have the Padres 7. I still think the Padres are a very good team. I mean, a 3.
I think they
You still
tie in
have,
record, probably.
I mean, you still have like you still have Jackson Merrill, Fernando Tatis, and Manny Machado in the middle of that order. Jake Cronenworth. Their offense is still going to be really, really good. And I think their pitching is going to have enough. They still have a good bullpen without Tanner Scott. They have a couple of decent starters. And I think that kind of gets them in over the Brewers. I think, yeah, that's going to be pretty close. So I think coming down the final a couple weeks of the season, the NL wildcard battle, it's going to be the top 5 are basically already in. And it's going to be like the Brewers, Diamondbacks, and Padres kind of all battling for that 6th spot, and I think the Diamondbacks get it. But yeah, so our ALs are much different. NLs very, very similar. We have the same 6 teams making it. Again, I already explained why I think the Braves are better than the Phillies and Mets, so not really much explanations really there. It's pretty self-explanatory. As we get into our awards, since we're done with the regular season, we're going to go our AL awards. We're just doing MVP, Cy Young, Rookie of the Year for each league. So who do you have winning the 3 awards in the AL?
My computer kind of lagged out for a second. But I have for my AL him. I think that's going to propel them to a better seeding. I think Garrett Crochet is a very good pitcher. I think he just kind of had a lot of errors from the White Sox point of view, having players drop the ball or miss a throw to first base or missing out on double plays occasionally. And I think that's not going to happen nearly as much with the Red Sox. I think it's going to help boost his ERA and all those different numbers that are going to help him win the Cy Young. So go ahead and give me Garrett Crochet. And then for the AL MVP, I have Bobby Witt Jr., and obviously it kind of sounds funny to say that considering I have them as the 3 seed in the division, but I do think that Bobby Witt Jr. is one of the best, if not the best, in the entire thing. So I do think that he's very good. However, for my AL Rookie of the Year, the New York Yankees, Jason Dominguez, I have winning it. I think Dominguez is going to take a nice step for the Yankees. I think he's a very good player. And unfortunately, the Yankees continue to find their guys. So I think that he'll have a good year. I think that Dominguez is going to end up stealing this one for the AL Rookie of the Year. So that rounds out Jason Dominguez, Bobby Witt Jr., and Garrett Crochet as my 3 AL award winners.
Yeah, I have 2 of the 3 same. My Cy Young is a little bit of a sleeper pick, but I will save that for last. I also have Bobby Witt Jr. winning MVP. I think that Judge and Bobby Witt are the clear 2 guys. Like I don't see any world where one of them 2 don't win it unless they both get injured. But my thing, I think Judge will just be a tick worse than last year, like numbers wise, just because last year he was putting up like Babe Ruth level domination, the best hitting number since Barry Bonds, which I still think he's going to have like a 310, 320 batting average, 1100 OPS, like 55 home runs. But he was so good last year that's a down tick. I think him being in right field might help his WAR out a little bit more though, because he'll be much better defensively. He just doesn't have the range to be a good center fielder, but he does have a good arm and tracks the ball well to be a good right fielder. So I think the WAR might end up balancing out, but his hitting numbers will be a little bit worse. And then I think Bobby Witt will be just as good as last year, maybe a little bit better, to where they have very similar numbers. But my thing is, I think the voters are going to give it to Bobby because I think I have the Royals winning that division. Even though I also have the Yankees winning the division, I think Judge just got 2 out of the last 3 in the AL. Bobby Witt was so close last year, but Judge was just on another level. Where I think this year Bobby leads his team to winning a division, them having similar numbers, and I guess a little bit of like voter fatigue per se. I wouldn't say like Bobby Witt wouldn't deserve it in this case. But I'm just saying voter fatigue would play a little bit of a factor where they give the edge to Bobby, where it's kind of like everything similar. They're going to want to see a new guy win it. So I think Bobby wins it like that. I'm not saying he doesn't deserve it or anything, but that's just how I think it'll happen. And then rookie of the year, I also have Jason Dominguez. He struggled last year when he came up, but he was battling injuries. I get the defensive side of it isn't great, but in left field, defensive metrics don't really affect as much of your game. I think at that bottom of the order, he's going to be able to hit 260, 270, 20, 30 bombs, 30 stolen bases. I think he'll be a valuable part. He'll score a lot of runs. If he can just get on base, he'll provide a lot of value with other speed guys. Like, this is going to be the most athletic Yankees team I've seen in like a decade. I mean, you have three guys when on the bases are all legitimate like steal threats with Volpe, Jazz, and Dominguez.
Sorry again for the technical difficulties, but I think before we were running into some more technical issues, I was talking about Jason Dominguez. Basically, I was saying I think he can put up some decent hitting numbers with some like maybe like 25, 30 stolen bases. And I don't think like this rookie of the year class in the AL is super strong. I think it's stronger in the NL. So I think that it is going to be it'll be a little bit easier, I guess, to win it per se in the AL. So I'm gonna pick Jason Dominguez to win. And then my final award in the AL, the more surprising one, I have Logan Gilbert of the Seattle Mariners winning the Cy Young Award. If you look at his
Interesting.
yes, my thought process is I kind of want to go a little bit out of the box for a reward. For an award. All the other ones are pretty like plain basic ones. I'm like, let's go one out of the box. The reason I don't want to give it to Skubal is because Skubal was just so elite last year and he carried the Tigers to the playoffs. I don't think the Tigers make the playoffs this year. And I think Skubal is just going to be a tad bit worse than last year just because I think last year was so good. And how often do you see a player win like back to back awards when the second year is worse than the first year? Usually to win back to back, you have to improve on that first year. And I just think it's going to be so hard for him to improve on it where I don't think he wins it. And then Garrett Crochet hasn't shown yet that he can be a workhorse ace for a full season yet. So I'm a little worried about him maybe battling injury or faltering down the stretch. He didn't have a great start yesterday. And then Logan Gilbert, I think he's very underrated. If you look at his Fangraphs page from last year, his numbers across the board were absolutely elite. He was in like the top 10 percentile in almost everything. He was so good that I think I have the Mariners making the playoffs this year, and I think he's going to be the workhorse behind one of the top pitching staffs. So I think that he'll have that going for him. And you saw last night him having lights out performance. I think that's a sign of what's to come this year. And I'm not basing it just off that one game, but I think he really steps his game up and he'll have like a sub 2.5 ERA. I mean, I could easily see Scubo or Crochet winning it. Those are the two favorites for a reason. They're both excellent pitchers. But I want to go a little bit out of the box, and I could see Gilbert just having that breakout year and winning the Cy Young this year. I think the team will be better, so his numbers on paper will look a lot better than they were last year, which were still very good numbers. He had like a 3.25 ERA. As I toss it back over to you for your NL award predictions.
So for my NL, I have Shohei Ohtani winning the NL MVP. Shocker, shocker. I think he improves off last year with the Dodgers. He already started off the season with an absolute game and a half. So it'll be interesting to see what he does. Obviously, other than that, though, I do still think that other news, obviously, NL rookie, I think Roki Sasaki is a definite candidate there for the Dodgers again. I think that he's a very good player, and I think he's going to do enough to get that job done. And then, obviously, the NL Cy Young, I have Paul Skeens. He's one of the best pitchers in the game. I think he's going to have a great season here, and I think that he deserves it. And I think he'll show that throughout the course of the season, giving him the Cy Young Award.
Makes sense. I have 2 out of the 3 the same. I think Shohei wins the award. I could see someone else winning it. Maybe if Paul Skeens is dominant enough, which is definitely possible, but I don't think they'll be a good enough team for him really to be in consideration. Ketel Marte, Corbin Carroll, both of the Diamondbacks are potential. Kyle Tucker, he could have a breakout year, and the Cubs could be really good. Juan Soto, Bryce Harper, Ronald Acuna, maybe. I don't think he'll play enough. But there's a lot of guys that could be in the running, but I don't really Fernando Tatis, Jackson Merrill. But I think it's definitely Shohei's to lose. I think even if he only pitches half the season, I think with how good he is of a hitter, just adding on that little bit of value of him as a pitcher for him pitching half a season, I think will kind of take him over the top. So I do think Shohei wins the award this year. And then for Rookie of the Year, I have Dylan Cruz of the Washington Nationals winning it. He came on the last couple weeks of last year. He was one of the top prospects in the league, and he didn't have a great batting average, but he was hitting some nukes. He was hitting the ball pretty well. He was seeing it well, and I think he improves on that. And I think he has a really good showing this year. I could see him easily hitting almost 300 with like 20 to 30 home runs, and just having a really good OPS and a really good OPS plus. And I think that that could propel him to winning the Rookie of the Year over Rocky Sasaki, who I think might struggle a little bit out the gate. You saw against the Cubs in his first game. He kind of got lit up a little bit. He only pitched 4 innings. I could see kind of like with Yamamoto last year. He was slow out the gate. The transition from the Japan League to the MLB is definitely a transition. Obviously, it's not saying the leagues in Japan are bad, but the MLB is just another animal. So I could see a little bit of a struggle the first couple of months, and then Cruz getting out to a big league and him not being able to recover. And then for the Cy Young, I think this one's pretty easy. Unless Paul Skeens gets injured, I think he runs away with this award. If he would have played all of last season, he would have won it last year as a first year guy, as a rookie, and a rookie that was drafted the year prior. He literally made the MLB in under a year and almost won the Cy Young. Like, he is just on an absolute tear right now. He is so unbelievably dominant. It's not really fair. He is just that level of good where I think I could see him having like a prime Jacob DeGrom type season if he can stay healthy. Like, I genuinely think he is just that insane. I think that the team around him gets a little bit better, which even helps his numbers even more. And yeah, I think that is the most slam dunk pick of them all. I think is Skeens winning the NL Cy Young. Really, the only other pitchers I could see even like coming close would be like Zach Wheeler and Blake Snell. And Blake Snell always starts off too slow, and I think
Zach Wheeler's inconsistent.
Zach Wheeler is consistently like elite, but he's never like, besides in the playoffs, he's never been like that dominant. He's always like a consistent between like a 2.5 and 3 ERA, which is elite, very, very, very good. And then the playoffs, he's another level. But he has yet to have that season of just pure dominance. So that's the reason why I don't think he'll be able to get it either. But those are really the only two guys I can see contending schemes for this. I think it's pretty clear as day. He's running away with this. As we move into our playoff predictions now, we'll go wild card, the 4 games. I'll toss it over to you, and then we'll go division, championship, World Series. So who do you have winning your 4 wild card predictions?
Well, first of all, I'm going to start out by listing each of them. So the 3 seed Seattle Mariners taking on the 6 seed Boston Red Sox. I do think that the Red Sox are going to win this series. I think the Mariners are just a product of a pretty bad division and pretty beat up Texas Rangers team. Houston really lost a lot in the offseason. I do think that the Seattle Mariners are a solid team, but I think the Red Sox are probably one of the biggest sleepers of the season, and I would be surprised if they don't really come into this game with the same expectations of the Detroit Tigers last year, who snuck in as the 6 and beat up on the 3-seeded Houston Astros. So go ahead and give me the Boston Red Sox. I think the Red Sox will win this one in 3. I think it'll take the full 3 games. I don't think Seattle's a pushover by any means, but I do think Boston wins. Next up, I have the 4 versus 5, Cleveland versus Kansas City. This is going to be an absolutely amazing series. I think Cleveland getting the home field advantage is definitely going to be a big part of a big thing for Cleveland. But I have to go with the Kansas City Royals in this series. I absolutely love this Kansas City Royals team. If they can have enough deep pitching, I think they're going to win. And obviously in the 3-game series, I trust them enough to hold it down in the fort with the pitching. So go ahead and give me the Kansas City Royals to move on to the second round, meaning we would have the Yankees and the Royals, the Tigers and the Red Sox in my final 4 for the AL. Flipping over to the NL side of the bracket, we have the 3-seed Cubs, 6-seed Arizona Diamondbacks, and just like the Boston-Seattle series, I think Arizona wins this series. I do think Arizona sweeps, though. I don't think the Cubs are a bad team. I think the Cubs are a pretty decent team, but the Arizona Diamondbacks coming into this playoff, they've been through hell and back, having to play the Padres, having to play the Giants, having to also play the Dodgers, of course. And because of that, I think they're just more battle-tested coming into this game than the Cubs, who have kind of beaten up on some pretty bad teams. So go ahead and give me the Diamondbacks to sweep that series in advance to the NL second round. And then the other divisional series matchup, wild card matchup to move on to the divisional series will be the New York Mets, who conveniently just started their game against the Astros, literally not even 10 seconds ago,
Let's go Mets.
taking on
I
the
just hate the Astros.
Atlanta Braves. However, I love my New York Mets. They're a great team, but I'm going to refer to something that I talked to Alex about before this podcast started, and that was one of the teams in the NHL, the 2019 St. Louis Blues. They started the year out terrible, made it all the way to the playoffs, went on a huge run, won the Stanley Cup in 7 games against the Bruins. The next year, after that, they lost in the first round to the Minnesota Wild. I think the Mets have a similar fate in this one, unfortunately. You're running into an amazing Atlanta Braves team, and when they're healthy, they are clearly better than the New York Mets. That's the question, is will they be healthy at this point of the season? I'm not sure. And yes, I understand. You can argue that the Mets are a better team than they were last year, obviously, because of Juan Soto. But here's the thing. The Mets only made it so far last year because Francisco Lindor hits a home run to even get us into the playoffs. Pete Alonso hits a walk-off home run in the top of the 9th inning against the Milwaukee Brewers in Game 3 of the first round. Beat the Phillies, who are a perennial team that chokes in the playoffs, and then got absolutely screwed by the Dodgers. Like, I understand this is a Mets team that's good, and I think that they're a great team too, but you're playing in a stacked conference and you don't have the pitching to make up for it. I think it's going to get the better of you in this series, and I think the Braves take advantage. So go ahead and give me the Braves. I think the Mets put up a fight. They lose in 3, but I do think that the Atlanta Mets, the Atlanta Mets, the Atlanta, Christ, the Atlanta Braves will move on to take on whoever they'll take on. So it would be the Dodgers versus Diamondbacks and Phillies versus Braves. So 2 divisional matchups in the division series. Perfect.
Yep. So I have in my AL, I have the Royals versus the Mariners and the Red Sox versus the Orioles. I have the Mariners getting the upset against the Royals in 3 games. I just think the Mariners pitching is better than the Royals, and I think their lineup might be a little bit deeper because I think the Mariners offense gets a lot better. Like if we're going pitching matchup, Gilbert's better than Reagan's. Luis Castillo's better than I'm blank. I know they have. Why am I blanking on the Royals' other elite starter? I am blanking on his name, but I'd still take Castillo. And then in the third, it's probably a toss up, but I'd still probably take the Mariners third. I think they'll have the better pitcher in each of the 3 games, and their offenses are decently similar. I get Bobby Witt could just go Bobby Witt crazy mode and carry them to the win, and it's possible. But I think that the Mariners pull off the upset because I think they're more playoff built with how good their pitching staff is. And then I have the Red Sox beating the Orioles in 2. They're going to have the clear better pitcher in both matchups, and their offense, I think, is probably better too. So I think the Red Sox take care of business in a quick 2-game sweep of the Orioles. And then in the NL, I have the Cubs versus Diamondbacks, Phillies versus Mets. I have Diamondbacks in 3 also. I think that their offense is just so good. They're kind of just an overall all-around better team than the Cubs. The reason they're the 6th seed and the Cubs are 3 is just division. And then I have Phillies versus Mets. I had Phillies in 3 just because with how bad the Mets pitching staff is, I just don't see them going up against a 3-game stretch of Zach Wheeler, Aaron Nola, and Ranger Suarez, and having the pitchers that can beat them twice. Maybe I think they can pull out one with how good their offense is. I
It'd definitely be the Nola game. Wheeler owns us.
Well, yeah, I think Wheeler shoves. I think you win that. I think the Phillies definitely win game 1, and I don't see the Phillies losing back-to-back games of Aaron Nola and Ranger Suarez. So I think that the Mets probably think they get to Nola, and then I think Suarez kind of cleans it up against whoever they send out in game 3, Cardiac Clay or AJ Minter or I don't know, so someone
Sean Manaea.
Nah. Someone not nearly as good as Ranger Suarez. So that leads me to my AL matchups being Yankees, Mariners, Red Sox, Rangers, Dodgers, Diamondbacks, and Braves, Phillies, as I toss over to you for how you think the divisional series pans out.
So, first of all, we're going to start with my 1 versus 5 matchup, Yankees versus Royals. And a lot of people might call me delusional, but I think the Royals force 5 games, and I think the Yankees win, though. I think the Yankees just have a little bit deeper pitching, even losing Garrett Cole, and I think that's going to really hurt this Royals team in the end. I think that Bobby Witt's going to do Bobby Witt-like things in this playoff, and he's going to be very good, but I think that you're taking on the number 1 team in the division in the conference, pardon, for a reason. So because of that, I think that the Yankees just barely advance. And I'm going to say this now. If the Kansas City Royals had a path where they had to play either the Tigers or the Red Sox in this situation, I think the Royals could easily make it to the conference final against the championship series, I guess, in this situation. So I do think that that is having to be said because I think this Royals team could definitely surprise a lot of people this year. But you get a bad matchup against the Yankees, and unfortunately, you're going to lose to them back-to-back seasons. As for the other matchup, we have the Detroit Tigers taking on the Boston Red Sox, and give me the Boston Red Sox to do it. I think the Red Sox are a damn good baseball team. Garrett Crochet is my Cy Young winner for a reason. I think the Red Sox are going to go pretty far in this playoff, and I think that they're going to expose the Tigers bullpen outside of Tariq Skubal. I think that's going to be the difference in this one, and I think that because of the bats from the free agency acquisitions, Boston is off to the ALCS to take on the New York Yankees. Interesting matchup we'll
What
see
a
there.
matchup that would be.
Dude, I know. NL side, we have a very similar situation. Dodgers versus Diamondbacks. Dodgers winning this one. I think the Diamondbacks, if they get one of the other two teams, could definitely win. But obviously, you're playing the best team in baseball, and the best team in baseball is going to be the best team in baseball in this series, and I think they're going to win. I think it takes them 4 games. I think that you got to give a little bit of leeway to this team. And obviously, Roberts likes to kind of toy. We saw what happened with the Mets series. They purposely let that series go to 6 games just to give another starter a rest for the World Series. So because of that, I could definitely see them doing that up 2-0 and then giving the Diamondbacks a series game. So 3-1, I think, could have in that situation. And then we have the Phillies versus Braves. Oh my God, this would feed families. I do think this is a great series, and this being a best of 5 is kind of sad. I really wish this could go to the distance for 7, but I think it's going to go to the distance in 5. And go ahead and give me the Braves in this series. I think the Phillies choke in the playoffs too goddamn much. They do it too goddamn often in order to pick them in this series. And then if I'm talking about the Braves here, the Braves have one of the best pitching staffs in the league. And because of that, I think the pitching is going to be just enough to get them over the hump. If this is a 3-game series, give me the Phillies. If this is a 7-game series, give me the Phillies. But if it's a 5-game series, you're losing to the Braves. I'm so sorry, Phillies fans, but it's over. I think the Atlanta Braves take a
Why would
page
you
out
be
of the Mets
sorry for
book.
anyone in Philadelphia?
Yeah,
Their fan
right.
base sucks.
Yeah, right. So they're gonna take a page out of the Mets playbook and advance to the NLCS. It will be the Dodgers, Braves on one side, and then on the other, the Yankees and Red Sox. Back to you.
Why do we have to think so similarly?
No, tell me you're kidding. No.
Nope. I have the Yankees versus the Mariners, the Red Sox versus Rangers. I have the Yankees in 4 over the Mariners. I think the Mariners pitching can get them 1. I think maybe Logan Gilbert maybe gets like game 1. Red Sox versus Rangers. I have Red Sox in 4. I think that their matchup is able to. I think their hitting is able to match up really well with the Rangers hitting. I just trust the Red Sox pitching a lot more. And then in the NL, Dodgers versus Diamondbacks. I had the Dodgers in 4 for the exact same reason you had the Dodgers in 4. I think they give them a game just to rest their pitching like they always do. They did against the Yankees. They did against the Mets. They do that because they're good enough. And then Braves versus Phillies. I have the Braves in 5. I think the Braves are the second. I think the Braves, when healthy, are the second best team in the league, and I think they take care of the Phillies, who choke like always. So yes, I have Yankees versus Red Sox and dot. I mean, if this ends up being like the championship series, this could go down as maybe some of the most watched ever. Like Yankees versus Red Sox, arguably the best rivalry in sports, and then the super team Dodgers versus the Braves, who have been very good for a couple years. They just won a World Series. Like that could be an electric series. If this ends up being the final 4 teams, I think baseball ratings go up a lot because these are some insane series.
Yeah, it would be indeed. Ooh.
And how do you have it? How do you have the championship series playing out?
See, I'm going to start in the NL for this one to save a little bit of suspense. Dodgers versus Braves. I think the Atlanta Braves are a damn good baseball team, but I think they're going to suffer the exact same fate as the Mets did last year, and they're going to lose in 6 games to the Los Angeles Dodgers. I think LA is a great team, and I think that the Phillies are a good team too, but the Braves are right there in that plateau in the middle. They're so hard to gauge for me. If they're healthy, they're probably the second best team in the NL by far. And so because of that, I do think that the Braves are going to keep this series close. I think they do enough, but I think overall it's going to come down to pitching, and obviously the Dodgers have the most money, so they have the most pitching. And because of that, I think that this Dodgers team is going to take it to 6 games and win this series. And then on the opposite side, you have the Yankees and the Red Sox. I think this could go down as the best series ever played, considering I think the Red Sox pull off the upset in 7. I think it happens. I'm so sorry. You don't have Garrett Cole, and that's the difference. That makes so much to me. You got the GC who's out, and the GC that's in, Garrett Crochet, steps in for the Garrett Cole who's out. I think this is a great series. I think that the Dodgers are
We
going to
don't
play
need
the Red
Cole.
Sox. I don't like to be that guy who picks the same matchup, Dodgers Yankees, which was last year's, or else I definitely would have picked the Yankees here. I do think the Yankees will probably win this series, but I'm just saying this. One, to piss off Alex, but two, and a little
Screw you
less
too.
important, I don't want a rematch of last season because I hate both teams that were in it. I'm sorry. Just cross down rivals. I'm sorry. But anyway,
I hate the Mets, so it's all right.
yeah, it's fair. So anyway, I have the Red Sox pulling it off in 7 games. So give me the Red Sox versus the Dodgers, and I'm not going to lie to you. You're not going to like my World Series, but go ahead.
I also have the Dodgers in 6 over the Braves.
Leave me alone.
Well, no, you're stealing my ideas. You're definitely stealing mine. Nope. Just because I let you go first, you're just you can read my notebook right here, and you can just through the screen through my computer you can see it. You're like, oh, I'm just gonna.
I'm
take
going to
this.
read exactly what you're thinking. I hope
What
the
am I
audience
thinking?
doesn't know I'm gay. That's what you just thought. No.
What? No. All right, never mind. You don't know what I'm thinking. Okay. All right. Nope. That's definitely not it.
Hold
All
on.
right.
Sydney Sweeney. It's exactly what it is.
I
Yo.
mean, doesn't that come across every dude's mind every once in a while?
Yeah, right?
All right.
Can't
Anyways,
blame me.
Yankees versus Red Sox. Red Sox, Swiper the Fox, Paradox. Yankees in 5.
Really? In 5?
I had Yankees in 6. I just wanted to do that.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. I think that the Yankees are more battle tested. With the good thing about not having Garrett Cole against the Red Sox is the Red Sox are the team that usually owns Garrett Cole. Rafael Devers usually owns Garrett Cole. So that actually might be a good thing in that series, not having Garrett Cole, because he's always really bad against the Red Sox. And I think the Yankees still, without Cole, they still have a good four pitchers. Max Fried's still very good. Carlos Rodon, if Carlos Rodon pitches like he did yesterday against the Brewers, the Yankees could win the World Series. I'm not picking them to, spoiler alert, but they could. Like if they get that Carlos Rodon all year, I think it'd be really good. Clark Schmidt, I still think is a very good pitcher. Luis Gil, I still think is very good. And then you have an elite bullpen, which bullpen matters so much in the playoffs, where the Yankees bullpen kills the Red Sox bullpen. The Yankees the Yankees like fourth best relief pitcher, Tim Hill, would probably be the best relief pitcher on Boston. Like
That's
Luke
fair.
Weaver is clearly better. Devin Williams is clearly better. I'd probably take Tim Hill. And there's probably more. Like the Yankees, their relief pitching is just so deep. Matt Blake does wonders with that room. And I think that they're going to be able to get the win that way. I think the Red Sox may be a little bit better offense, but pitching prevails in the playoffs usually. So I do have the Yankees in 6. I just wanted to say that. I actually messed it up. I had a different like saying, and then I completely blanked on the third thing I was going to say. But I just want to do the Yankees.
Red Sox, dicks, Yankees in 6.
Well, anyways, I guess it's could be biased, but I do think the Yankees are still clearly the best team in the AL. And who knows? Like there's still the trade deadline where clearly, like say Sandy Alcantara is on the deadline, or Vlad Guerrero Jr. is on the block. Those are both two big fish. The Yankees could just say screw it and send the house to, and like it's possible that they could go and get one of those guys. Personally, I'd rather it be Sandy Alcantara because like then you go Alcantara. You go Fried, Rodon, Gill, and then Clark Schmidt is like, and
And
Stroman.
Hill
both
is a relief. Oh,
well, you have Stroman and Clark Schmidt would both be like long relievers. If any of our 4 starters like struggle in like the 3rd inning, you just pluck them easily and you throw one of those guys in to get you to like the 6th or 7th, so you don't tax your bullpen. I
right.
wish the Yankees would have done that more last year when
Yeah.
they had Stroman and Nestor Cortez, but they decided not to, which was kind of a little frustrating. But it's whatever. It's not a big deal. I wish they would have just not taxed the bullpen as much, but that's not really why they lost in the World Series, so I can't really hate too much. But so yeah, I do have Yankees Dodgers as a repeat. So you have Dodgers Red Sox. How do you have your World Series panning out?
These colors.
Yeah.
Give me the
Dodgers.
Dodgers in 5. I think that the Red Sox magic ends here. I think the Dodgers are by far the best team in baseball, and I think they're going to prove it again. I think that they're going to have a very similar path to what they had last year. They're going to play a sleeper team in the Braves in the conference final. They're going to play a pretty good team from the AL East in the World Series itself, but I think that they're going to suffer the same outcome as the Yankees. 5-game series. I think the Dodgers win this one. Go ahead and give me LA to win the World Series for the 2nd straight year.
Yeah, I have the New York Yankees losing. Unfortunately, I had the Dodgers in 6. I think that World Series last year was a lot closer than people want to give credit for. The Dodgers outscored the Yankees by 1 run in that World Series. If Aaron Boone isn't a complete retard, they win Game 1 because everyone who had any sense of a brain knew Tim Hill should have been in there instead of Nestor Cortez. This is in hindsight 2020. I hated the decision right when they put in Cortez. I'm like, this is not going to end well. I wanted Tim Hill. I was texting people. I'm like, what is Boone doing? Put in Tim Hill. He's been so good. You put in Tim Hill, you get that win. Then maybe they don't win Game 4. They don't dominate as much because the Dodgers aren't up 3-0, but they win that game. They win by a lot. So I think they still. And then in Game 5, if Judge catches the fly ball, or if they don't mess up the throw, I think it was like Volpe or maybe Verdugo. Volpe messed up the throw.
He dropped the ball and then got him on base.
Or if Anthony Rizzo had any sense of urgency and realized, oh, I picked up the ball about 3 steps from first base. Maybe I should just step on the bag instead of tossing it to a pitcher who has to run over and try and beat out a fast Mookie Betts. Like, if I get maybe Garrett Cole should have probably ran. That's his job. But if Anthony Rizzo was just not a complete idiot there and would have picked up the ball and ran to first, he would have clearly beat Mookie. If just one of those 3 things happened, the Yankees win that game because they're up 5-0. They end up scoring another run. They would have won that game. Like, maybe the Dodgers get like a run here. They would have won that game like 6-1, 6-2. Garrett Cole probably goes the entire 9 innings because he was absolutely mowing down the best Garrett Cole I have ever seen, just absolutely dominating that team. And then the defensive collapse, brought him back in the game. They're able to win. Then the Yankees are up 3-2 with the much fresher bullpen, and they could have. I mean, yeah, the Dodgers still could have won that series, but just 1 or 2 things in a couple of games go differently. Literally, two things go differently. Tim Hill gets put in, and Anthony Rizzo covers first base. And the Yankees are up 3-2 going Game 6. Like, it is so much closer than people want to say, even though the Yankees lost in 5. I'm saying all that just to say the Yankees lose in 6 because the Dodgers just got so much better this offseason. I think the Yankees stayed.
The Yankees put up so much of a fight. Instead of in 5, they're going to lose in 6.
But I think it's more. I think if this Yankees team that they have this year played the Dodgers team last year, I think they'd win. But the fact that the Dodgers
they would win in 7.
The fact that the Dodgers added Blake Snell and Rocky Sasaki to make that pitching staff just unfairly good, and Tanner Scott to make that bullpen unfairly good. Like, I think I'm going to go because, like, Aaron Judge is going to figure it out at some point. I get he struggled, but someone of that caliber doesn't struggle that much in the playoffs.
Yeah, no.
Austin Wells has and Anthony Volpe already showed that they're improving off last year. Jason Dominguez could come in and give more pop than Alex Verdugo. Cody Bellinger, obviously he's not going to be as good as Soto, but he'll be a decent replacement. I think the platoon of Paul Goldschmidt and Ben Rice will be an upgrade at first base, where they had the lowest OPS in the league last year. The Yankees' first basemen had the lowest OPS in the league last year. I think you put Goldschmidt against lefties, Ben Rice against righties, Ben Rice put on like 10 pounds of muscle, was smashing the ball in spring training. I get it, spring training. But you should have upgrade there. The defense is going to be better at first base. Jazz at second's a huge defensive upgrade over Torres. So now that defense is a lot better. While the young guys are improving, they don't really have old guys I expect to get worse other than maybe like Stanton. But Judge is still in his prime. Like, I don't see a single position outside of like going from Soto to Bellinger where the Yankees got worse this offseason. Everywhere else, they got better. Obviously, losing Garrett Cole hurts the pitching staff, but it's still good. The bullpen's elite. I just think this team is slept on. Maybe I could just be a biased Yankees fan, but I really think that the Yankees are going to be a better playoff performer that they have in years past because I think Judge figures it out. I just even like Lamar, he's known as this playoff choker. He has played better these last 2 years in the playoffs. I get he's had the turnovers against the Chiefs, the turnovers against us that has lost in the game. But he has played better these last 2 years than he did his first couple years. He is probably going to eventually get over the hump and is going to have a really good playoffs. I think the same thing is probably going to happen for Aaron Judge. So I think that the Yankees put up a fight there, but the Dodgers are just the Avengers right now. So I have the Dodgers in 6, unfortunately. Hopefully I'm wrong because it would be absolutely awesome if
Go Mets, baby.
as long as the Mets, Dodgers, or Red Sox, like if one of those 3 don't win the World Series and if the Yankees don't win it, I'd be happy. Like sorry, it's more so the Juan Soto thing. I mean, the crosstown rivals, but if Soto left and goes on to win a World Series, I'd be pretty pissed. I don't think it's
I don't blame you.
Yeah, but the Red Sox goes the Red Sox, and then the Dodgers. I just don't want to see. I want to see them.
That's like if Steph Curry went to the Sacramento Kings and then won an NBA championship.
Yeah, basically. All right, but that is all we have for today. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. Next week, we are planning to do a first-round mock draft of the NFL post-free agency. A big different mock draft from the one we did a couple of months ago. So stay tuned for that. No trades still involved, but I hope you guys all had a great day. We will see you next week.